Now I'm going to make you the host. Oh, I can't hear you.
You're
Yeah,
muted.
you're muted.
You're muted.
Okay.
Okay, so now you need to click on participants on the bottom next to the mute.
Okay.
And then you could let Richard in next to his name. There should be a thing that says admit.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Cool. And then when everybody's here and ready, should be a little button that says admit all at the top.
Okay. See it. Mm-hmm.
You'll just click that. And should Richard need it, I think he can share his screen. I have the ability to share, so he should.
Yeah, he's going to want to share a screen.
And if for any reason you found a problem with that, you could just, under participants, make next to Richard's name, make him co-host.
Okay.
But it should work. It should be set up that any participant can share a screen now, so. But if for some reason you ran into trouble and he couldn't, you could make him co-host and he would be able to
Okay.
do it.
Got it.
Richard, I'm really sorry we're not able to join you today. We made reservations at a campsite before we knew that you would be the speaker today, and we are on our way, packed and ready to go.
Okay, can you hear me now? Because it said I had to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you, however briefly, Mariana.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, who knows? I might be quoting you during the course of this. We'll see what happens. But
So Melanie is going to take care of you today as your Zoom host.
yes, I've
Yeah.
had some wonderful.
So what I hear, Richard, is that you don't have to be co-host, but I can make you a co-host if you want. It's all the same. So
Well, as long as I could play those videos.
yeah, you should be able to anyway.
You might want to try it before people get in. Do you want to try
Yeah.
to share your screen?
Good idea.
Okay, can I do it right now or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, right
Oh,
now.
look, yeah. If the video is on your screen, go ahead. I'm gonna let Jess tell you
Yeah.
because I'm not the person who explains tech best or knows tech best.
Okay, I'll just start to play it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see here. Can you hear that? See that?
No, so
No.
you have to share your screen. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jess, tell him.
Okay, in the bottom of the Zoom, there's a little green box, like a little.
Oh yeah, share
Yep.
screen.
Yep, click that, and then you can find the video. The video should show somewhere.
Ah,
And then one more thing you have to do is a checkbox on the bottom of that says share, optimize for video. It says something about
yeah,
share.
well, it's not coming up.
The video isn't, or
Yeah, I mean, if I right now it's like share my desktop, but that's not going to do it. The video isn't on my share, my board for sharing.
is it in a web browser or something? Where's the video?
The video's on my desktop. My wife put it in a file and put it on my desktop, and I was sharing it with her.
Okay, you have to have it open to share it. So is
Well,
it
it
open?
is open. It is
Oh.
open.
If you share your desktop, yeah, let's see what happens.
Okay.
This is promising.
Oh my God, this is a new computer for me, and I need my wife's password, so I gotta call her.
Okay.
When I was the host, when I was doing it myself,
So what if I make him co-host? Will that help?
well,
You can
let's see what
try,
happens.
sure.
It won't solve his wife's password problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But that's something
That's
separate, I
true.
believe.
And she was probably there at the time.
No, we didn't need the password at the time.
Oh,
Mm,
That's what I'm saying. When I was the host, I was just sharing it with her, but let me see if I can call her
Well,
now.
we can make you the host.
Is it telling you need permission from the computer to share your screen?
It says to share your computer audio, please install Zoom audio device. And then it says, please restart your audio sharing application, such as the media player after install to continue sharing computer sound.
Whoa, yeah.
That's new to me.
Yeah, that's new to me. If we can hear you, then your audio is connected. So that's odd.
Yeah, let me see something here. Han, what is your password for your oh really? That's your username as well. That's your username as well. No capitals? Okay. So,
There we
Okay,
go.
we've got a screen now.
okay, just a second. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You just need to make it bigger.
Make it bigger?
Yeah. Right now we just see a little box in the corner.
Well, this is interesting because when I did it with my wife, it filled her whole screen. So
Oh,
is it possible to make me the co-host and I think it would be easier? But
Yeah.
I'll make it bigger if need be. So right now, is my whole screen being shared?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, well, okay. Apparently I have a transcription thing on here that's causing problems. Okay, we're just going to plunge ahead because how many folks do we have here? Okay. So at the beginning of the meeting, since we're building community here, it's nice to hear a little something from everyone. So if you wouldn't mind, is Jimmy here? Uh-oh, is he still in the waiting? No, he can't be. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy's here.
Yeah, got it. If we can just go around and have everybody say their name in case not everybody knows everybody here. So and I've noticed from past meetings that it works out better if somebody calls on people. So if you don't mind, I'll just call on folks. Is that okay? Share your name and maybe share something that you really enjoyed doing, like a wonderful mindful moment, or just something that you really enjoyed. Trey, can I call on you?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you today. My name is Trey, and a mindful moment that I'm excited about that hasn't happened yet is I'm dressing up as a punk monk tonight for Halloween. So I spent today getting mindful and channeling what does this punk monk look like. So yeah, I'm excited for that and just to be here with all of you. And I'm also very excited to go back at 4 p.m. today to Greg's Pololo temple and just all the experiences I've had with Richard at doing an MBSR class. That was incredible. And just seeing you in person in Zoom, a lot of mindful moments, just every moment's mindful. Learning about de Mello, it's all good. Mahalo. Thanks.
Thank you, Trey. That was terrific. I wish we
Thank
could
you.
see your costume. How about Steve in Ka'ava?
Okay, yeah, thank you. My name is Steve, and I've been in Richard's de Mello group for 3.5 years. I'm a retired community college English professor for the last 4 years. And one mindful moment for me was last night was the second time that our de Mello group met in person at the Bodhi Tree in the outdoor cover of an eye. So I really enjoyed that very much and looking forward to it again this Friday, continuing in person. But I'm glad to be in Richard's group, and that's why I heard about this. So nice to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Suzanne Noor? Hi. Oh,
You gotta unmute, Suzanne.
you're muted.
Start over. I'm Sue, and I drop in occasionally. And my mindful moment is I just love being in community with people like in this group.
Thank you so much. John Passerini.
Yes, I'm John Passerini, and it's 7:15 in Lexington, Massachusetts right now. And Richard and I attended school in Newton, Massachusetts together. And Richard and I have been friends ever since the first grade, or possibly kindergarten. And we played football together in high school, and we lived in the same community, Newton Upper Falls. So that's my thrilling, my happy occasion is getting back in touch with Richard after so many years, and having all of Tony de Mello's books on my shelf when I did get in touch with Richard, which made it even more exciting. And at the very beginning of the last year, learning mindfulness and beginning a meditation practice, and has been very exciting. And I'm just very happy to be here, and I've looked forward to this ever since I heard about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, John.
And I'm going down my little rows of boxes. So Jimmy, you're next. Even though everybody knows you, but still. Oh, can't hear you.
Maybe you have to turn your
There-
volume up, Jimmy.
there- Oh, okay, now he's connecting. Try now. Oh, no.
Jimmy, do you have another device plugged into your computer, like a headset plugged into your computer? If so, you need to take that out.
We can't hear Jimmy, but he's unmuted.
Okay. Then he needs to go here and select the right audio device. There's a menu there of all the microphones. He's on the wrong one.
Oh, boy.
So you select the right microphone.
Jimmy, my tech support husband says go down to the mute and bring up the menu, and you might be on the wrong microphone. So click on the right. Did you find, nod your head, did you find the menu for the devices? I'm not a good lip reader.
Maybe if Jimmy got off and got back on again, maybe that would work. I don't know.
We could try that. Yeah, Jimmy, why don't you log off and come back on, and we'll see if that works. In the meantime, Peggy, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Peggy Perkinson. I am still in St. Louis, and my mindful moment is or was sitting outside the other day. It's beginning to be autumn, and it's really beautiful here. The maples are turning brilliantly red, and just sitting outside in the stillness and enjoying all the colors. So that's me.
Thank you. That's terrific.
You have this one more?
Yeah, just a second. I'm gonna hook up it's under Toyama, Jimmy. Okay. Thank you, Peggy. Evelina?
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me, but I think it should be okay. Hi, I'm Evelina, and my mindful moments today.
Can you turn up your audio maybe? You're very soft.
Hey, hello, can you hear me now?
That's a little better. Okay.
Evelina, did you want to say more? I don't think we heard you.
You'll have to start over again.
Hi.
Hi,
Okay.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, I changed my setting. Hello, everyone. I am Evelina. And my mindful moment today was welcoming the day on the Diamond Head at 6:30 a.m.
Oh.
Wow.
So my day is long already. And yeah, it was very beautiful. And I was mindful every step on my way
Oh.
to the top. Thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, Jimmy, you're back. Jimmy, my husband was going to call you. Yeah, he's back. No, not yet. Okay. My husband's going to call you, Jimmy, and hopefully give you some help. Okay. Trin, forget how to pronounce this.
I think Trin is good enough.
Okay, good. Thank you. I practiced saying that last name so many times, but it was a while ago. Would you like to share your name and a mindful moment or something that you really enjoyed? And unmute yourself. Maybe you stepped away from the computer. Can never tell when the face isn't there.
That's right.
Oh, we'll come back to you. Corinne? Corinne Ching? Ooh. How about Wayne and Noreen? Oh, wait, Corinne, your thing went off. Okay, Wayne and Noreen.
Aloha, this is Wayne Swan. We've been with Richard for a few years now and been following Anthony de Mello. And my mindful moment is down here working on the Polynesian voyaging canoes and sanding the coal wood and just seeing the different colors come out as we're working on the canoes.
Terrific. And is Noreen there too?
Aloha, yes. My mindful moment is every morning I wonder if I will or won't hear the crow, the rooster crowing in the morning.
Oh,
so
yes,
that's
yes.
anticipation, yeah. And I find myself often at the Chinese cemetery, and I don't count what Saturday that is. It's just awesome to be with you all. And
Oh.
Richard is something else. And Jimmy too.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Noreen. Wayne.
Aloha. Thank you. Thank you. Aloha.
Eileen?
I'm actually from Burlington, Massachusetts, so
Hey.
awful close. This is my first time here. A friend of mine invited me here this evening, and I've just started to work on my mindfulness practice. So I'm very interested to learn more about being more mindful and incorporating it into my everyday practices.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tara?
Hi there. I'm Tara, and I was one of Richard's students, and I loved going through his classes and learning everything with him, and just really glad to be here. And I'm in Texas, so you've got quite a diverse group of, you're not just Hawaii, you've got people all over, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So Richard, you're really branching out and getting everywhere.
I guess. Good to see you, Tara.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. You really have made a difference in my life. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Tara.
You're welcome.
How about Hinano?
Aloha, everyone. I am Hinano, and I am also in Richard's de Mello group, or at least I had been, and then I took a long break because I was paddling canoe for a season and didn't have Fridays free. So I'm really happy to be here on this Saturday morning with all of you to continue to learn about Anthony de Mello. He's made a big difference in my life as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Good to see you, Hanano.
Marcia?
Hi there, this is Marcia Schweitzer. I am a Christian, Buddhist, Taoist, Pele worshiper who is a musician, teacher, author, trying to be mindful in this moment, which is the only one there is.
Absolutely. All right, thank you so much. Trina, are you back? Are you here?
Oh, there she is.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm driving here. My name is Trin.
My.
Okay. It's okay. My first time joining this group. Really excited about it. I emailed Jimmy to put me on the email list the other day. Got connected through Richard, whom I know from various groups in Honolulu. And it's nice to hear there's a lot of folks from Massachusetts, because I am originally from Worcester, Massachusetts. And I'm excited to learn more about Anthony de Mello. I've heard a little bit through it. And yeah, looking forward to today's talk. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm turning
very
off my
much.
video.
Yes, please. Thank
Drive
you.
safely, Trent.
Corinne, are you there? Going once, going twice? All right, we'll have to catch you next time. And Jimmy is still on tech support. So we'll hear from him later anyway. So, well, it seems like everybody here knows Richard. And so he really needs no introduction, but in case you don't know, he's also vice president of Mindful Hawaii. And all know that he's been doing this work for a very long time. So I'm just going to skip over the introductions because you know what, you all know him. And Richard was going to lead us into a meditation to start us all off and to have us nice and centered so we can gain the most insight and inspirations in addition to having a lot of fun. So Richard, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. And I'd like to share my mindful moment, which is right now. I feel excited, and I'm reminded of Fritz Perls. He was the father of Gestalt therapy and a favorite of Tony de Mello's. And as he said, anxiety plus breathing equals excitement. So remember that. Okay, I'm going to do a short meditation, actually from Anthony de Mello's first book, which is entitled Sadhana, A Way to God. Now, Melanie, you have the resource list.
Yes.
And I wonder if there's a way to put that in the chat so that any book I refer to, people could reference it in the resource list.
Okay, I'll work on that. I have it pulled up and I hear it's very easy to do, so.
Yeah, maybe your tech support there could help
Yeah,
you
well,
out
he's
with
busy
that.
with Jimmy right now, so I'll try it on
Oh,
my
that's
own.
right, yeah.
But don't worry, we've got a while, so.
Okay, good. So this book that I'm going to take a meditation from is the first book that Tony wrote. It's Sadhana, A Way to God, and that's what the word means. Christian exercises in Eastern form. And this was first published in 1978. And it was in 1972 that Tony went to a Goenka retreat. And that made a huge difference. That was transformational for him, a huge difference in his teaching. And so he would put his meditations in this book. They're essentially mindfulness meditations. And I'm looking for the one that I had earlier. He put them in what he called Christian form, but they're essentially all mindfulness. Let's see here. What did I do with that? Please bear with me here. I had the book open to it and I closed the book and I forgot to mark it. Okay, here we go. This is a meditation which he finds to be the most helpful in dealing with thoughts. So I suggest that you just get comfortable. And his statement prior to the meditation is, I have one more suggestion to offer you as help here. It is the most effective way I have as yet discovered for dealing with distractions. I shall put it in the form of an exercise. So close your eyes or leave them half open if you find that more helpful. Now observe every thought that comes into your mind. There are two ways of dealing with thoughts. One is to follow them around as a puppy in the streets will follow any pair of legs it finds in motion, no matter in what direction they are moving. The other is to observe them as a man stationed at his window watches passers-by on the street. This is the way I want you to observe your thoughts. After you have done this for a while, become aware that you are thinking. You may even say to yourself interiorly, I am thinking, or more briefly, thinking. To keep yourself aware of the thinking process, that is going on within you. If you find there are no thoughts in your mind and your mind is blank, wait for the next thought to make its appearance. Be on the alert, and as soon as a thought appears, become aware of it or of the fact that you are thinking. Keep up with this exercise for a couple of minutes. During this exercise, you may make the surprising discovery that while you are aware of the fact that you are thinking, all thinking tends to stop. Here then is a simple way of dealing with a wandering mind. Pause for a while and turn to the fact that you are thinking, and the thinking will cease temporarily. Keep this exercise for times when you are more than ordinarily distracted. It is almost impossible not to be frequently distracted when you first launch out into the field of contemplation. But most distractions are dealt with by simply recalling the mind to its task of concentration when you're aware of the distraction. There is no need for this exercise except when your mind is more than ordinarily distracted. So now open your eyes and fall awake. So I'd like to say that I feel really happy that you're all here today. And this is going to be about stories. At times I'm going to have to pause to admit people. Stories are what Tony de Mello said are the most direct route to the human heart. And I would say he's the best storyteller that I have ever heard. So I'm going to be weaving in a lot of stories as we go along. And then hopefully technology does not fail me, and I'll show you some video, and we'll maybe also do a little bit of audio of Tony. It's really interesting that Tony really transformed once he discovered Vipassana, which is the Sanskrit word for mindfulness. And I'll see if I have, okay, here it is here. A book on the reading list is by his brother, Bill de Mello, Anthony de Mello, The Happy Wanderer, a tribute to my brother. And in this book, he simply states, without a doubt, however, the most significant change that came into Tony's teachings was the introduction of Vipassana meditation. And a note here about this particular meditation is that I was taught from Graham White. He's a mindfulness instructor who comes here from Australia. He hasn't been here since the beginning of COVID. But I was at a week-long retreat with him, and he quoted an instructor, a Buddhist instructor, when he was a monk in, I think it was Burma, as saying that noting is the greatest happiness. And I didn't know what to make of that at first. And what Graham went on to describe was that when you're meditating, just note where the mind goes. So if the mind goes into thinking, you just note thinking, and then you return to the breath. If you hear some sound, you simply note hearing, and you return to the breath. And if you're feeling physical sensations, just note sensing, and return to the breath. And so we did the meditation as usual at a mindfulness retreat for 45 minutes. Now, usually in a mindfulness retreat or in a sitting meditation for myself, I would be sitting there and I'd feel a pain in my knee or a pain in my back, and I'd start to move to feel more comfortable. And I might start thinking, oh boy, I wish we could start the walking meditation. Or when's he going to ring the bell? Now, this is all suffering from a mindfulness perspective. To quote Jack Cornfield, our suffering is our wanting things to be any different than they are. So I would be suffering. And on this particular day, there was a lawnmower. This was at the Zen Center here in Honolulu. There was a lawnmower going. So that's hearing versus saying to myself, oh, I wish that lawnmower would stop. Or if the mind is going off, oh, I should be more present. I'm judging myself. Anyway, that's all thinking and suffering. And so I did what Graham said. I just noted. And I was amazed, and the bell went off. And not once in the 45 minutes of that meditation did I suffer, because it was all about being fully present. And so that's how I learned what that meant. Noting is the greatest happiness. Just being with reality. And that's the theme for Tony, just being with reality, not adding to it or subtracting from it. And that's something I learned also about, about 12 years ago from this Japanese sensei who gave a talk on enlightenment at a Buddhist temple on the Pali. He said that essentially what I just said. He said that reality is just seeing things as they are, not adding to it, and not taking anything from away, just being fully present with it. And at that moment, I realized that enlightenment wasn't what I thought it was. I thought enlightenment was like someplace like heaven that you finally get to. And I realized it's a matter of being a moment-to-moment proposition. And then it was ironic that a few months later, I heard this monk, Vietnamese monk, over at Chaminade. He gave a talk and talking about enlightenment, and a woman asked him in the audience, how would you define enlightenment? He thought for a minute and he said, seeing clearly. Seeing clearly. And that's what Tony was all about. And I had the good fortune when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, this is about 20 years ago, to meet this guru from India, this Indian man. And I said to him, I said, in India, did you ever run into Anthony de Mello? And he smiled and he says, yes, I had the good fortune to have lunch with him for 2 hours. I said, well, what did you think? What was the experience like? He again smiled and he said, it's rare to be in the presence of an enlightened being. And Tony is, I guess I could say Tony is something else. You can't quite fit him into being like a Catholic priest or a Buddhist monk, but he truly weaved together the teachings of Jesus with those of Buddha. And he, let's see, I'm just going to check my notes here where I want to go with this, because there's so many stories to tell you. Okay, just to go back to Graham White. So in 2015, I was down in New Zealand with my wife, and then we went to Sydney, Australia. And I wanted to meet with Graham and also meet with Bill de Mello, Tony's younger brother. And Bill and I had been in connection for about 15 years. And this was my opportunity to meet him. And so I met with Graham, and he was asking me about de Mello, and I said, yeah, he really shifted his teaching to be teaching Vipassana, mindfulness, back in 1972 when he went to a Goenka retreat. And Graham looked at me and he said, 72? 73, maybe 72, he says, I was at a Goenka retreat, and there was 4 of us in the bunk room, and one of them was a Catholic priest from India. And well, then when I saw Bill, I was talking to Bill about that. I said, Bill, did Tony go to more than one Goenka retreat? He goes, I really don't know. He says, why do you call this friend of Tony's in India? So I said, okay. So Bill gave me the number. I called him, and I said, how many retreats did Tony go to with Goenka? And he laughed. He says, Tony only went to 1. He didn't need to go to any more. Once he went, he got it. And that doesn't surprise me. And Tony, to know his history, he went into novitiate when he was like 15, almost 16 years old. And then it was the Ignatian spirituality, and he did Ignatian meditations for many years. And then, so in 1972, when he was about, that'd be 25 years later, he was about 40, 41, is when he discovered Vipassana. And it's really interesting. If you know, there's a video, I put some videos on the resource list, like a Rediscovery of Life, which I will play a little bit from later. And the book Awareness, which again is that's a transcript of a 4-day retreat he gave. The Rediscovery of Life and Awareness both occurred in 1986 at Fordham University. And so the 4-day conference was Wake Up to Life. It was transcribed as Awareness. And in that 4-day retreat, midway through, there's a guy in the audience. He says to Tony, he says, hey, Tony, what do you think of meditation? And Tony says, yeah, meditation's okay. And he pauses and he says, as a matter of fact, that's what I've been talking about the whole time. And so what he was referring to was being present, being aware in the moment. So we can do formal meditation, and there's the informal, and that is being present with whatever you do. This is not a de Mello book, but Thich Nhat Hanh has a book, Pieces Every Step. And in that book, he talks about washing dishes meditation, peeling orange meditation, talking on the telephone meditation, that anything could be meditation. And Tony certainly would go along with that, about just being very aware, very present in the moment. And I'll tell you a story. In 2011 is when I started presenting Tony de Mello on this island. And I had, just prior to that, I had gone to a Toastmasters meeting at Unity Church in Honolulu. And I met a woman, her name was Dorothy, and Dorothy gave me permission to tell this story. And she was all excited when she found out I was from Boston. And she was from Dorchester, as she put it. And she was, I don't know, maybe 10 years older than me. And she didn't come across as being spiritually oriented at all. And I had a flyer about this Rediscovery of Life video I was going to show. I would show it in 4 parts on 4 Friday nights. And Dorothy showed up. And she attended every one dutifully. And then at the end of those 4 weeks, I offered to do a book study on the book Awareness. And I actually did 2 of them. And I've been doing them ever since. I started them like in February 2011. And one I did where I showed the video was Central Union Church. And I would always start the meeting with a meditation. And being a teacher of mindfulness meditation, my expectation was that people would meditate. Well, Dorothy, when I would start the meditation, she would get up and leave the room and go to the ladies' room. And if anybody has ever been to the Women's Center at Central Union Church, that's where I was doing the groups. And it's all glass along the sides, the walls, and the doors are glass. And Dorothy would come back. And when we would open our eyes, Dorothy would be standing at the door waiting to come in and sit down. And I would start to feel frustrated. Like, why isn't she meditating with us? And then the other group was at the home of Sister Joan Chatfield. And this was in her living room. And we had about 10 people. And Dorothy would always sit in this swivel chair. And I'd start the meditation and we'd be in a circle and Dorothy would swivel her chair so that her back was facing the group and look out the window. And again, I watched frustration come up within me. And then I realized that was my problem, not Dorothy's problem. And this is a point of Tony's teachings, that anytime we're upset about anything, anytime we're frustrated, it's nothing to do with the outside world. It's to do with us and our attachments. I was attached to Dorothy meditating because I was leading a meditation. And especially at Joan's home, where it was really quite cozy and all, and I'd be playing the audio of the book Awareness and would be going along, and Dorothy would say something like, well, stop it there. What's he talking about? I don't get it. And I'd do my best to explain. Sister Joan would do her best, and maybe somebody else in the group would do their best to explain to Dorothy, and Dorothy would say, oh, I still don't get it. Just keep going. So that was what Dorothy was like, especially in the group at Joan's house. And so a year goes by, almost a year, takes us to do the book Awareness, and we completed both book studies about the same time. And again, back at Central Union Church, I do another presentation of Rediscovery of Life, and I get to the last segment of it, and I show it, and I say that I have just completed 2 book studies, and if people would like to do a book study on awareness, I'm more than happy to do another one. Now, at this point, there's about 35 people in the room, and Dorothy's in the first row, like she always was, and she raises her hand. And I say, what is it, Dorothy? And she says, can I say something to people? I say, sure. So she gets up and she turns to the group and she says, I've been doing 2 book studies a week for a year now, I'm really at peace. So I really highly recommend that you you attend the book study. And then she whips around and looks at me and she says, but I'm really scared. I said, what are you scared of, Dorothy? She says, I'm scared because I don't know who I am anymore. Now, if you know Buddhism, this has to do with not self. And I said, well, what do you mean by that, Dorothy? She said, well, you know, I'm on the board of the condo association and I'm always fighting. I'm a fighter. I always fight for what I think is right. But you know, now I just speak up, but I still speak up for what I think is right, but I don't fight with anybody anymore. And I looked at her and I said, do you like feeling at peace? And then she said, oh yeah, a big smile came over her face and she sat down. And we in the group, both groups, we could see changes in Dorothy because Dorothy used to come to the meetings like with a furrowed brow and she'd be a little bit contentious. But over time, she just softened and she started to come to Friday night group early and help me set up. And then she said also to me, you know, early on in these two groups, there's two people that I really couldn't stand. Just like Dorothy, they attended both of these book studies. And she said, but then I started to put Tony's practices to work. And I'm fine with them now. They don't bother me at all. And this is, again, nothing outside of you can upset you. We upset ourselves because of our attachments. So to finish the story with Dorothy, and then I'll get back into Tony's teachings about attachments. A few months later, Dorothy was diagnosed with inoperable cancer. And I remember calling her up at Queens Hospital, talking to her on the phone. And she was so calm. And I said that to her. I said, Dorothy, you seem so calm. She says, yeah, I really am. I'm really at peace. She says, you know, my family and friends don't know what to make of me anymore. I just tell them it's the new Dorothy. And she says, and I owe it all to Tony, Anthony de Mello. And so she lived, I don't know, maybe about half a year more. And she died. And up in Waimanalo, her daughter held on a Thursday evening, as I recall, she held a memorial, I guess you call it a celebration for her mother. And her daughter was here from San Diego. And as Sister Joan, myself, and another guy from the Tuesday morning group came to the home, Dorothy's daughter and granddaughter walked across the lawn to us and they said, oh, you're here from the de Mello group. We want to tell you that that group meant so much to my mother, to my grandmother. She was really at peace the last year of her life. And it was amazing to see her so peaceful. And then Dorothy's nurse came up to me and she said, you know, it was really interesting. I think she was a nurse from hospice. And she said, the last 2 weeks of Dorothy's life, she told me she didn't want any more medications. She didn't need them. And I wasn't there when she passed, but I'm sure she passed very peacefully. So that is a story about, I could call it informal meditation, about awareness. Dorothy was putting into action what Tony was teaching. She wasn't meditating formally. So I really learned something. You don't, even though I teach meditation, and I think that practicing meditation is the easiest way, the most straightforward way to learn awareness and learn about that sense of inner peace. You can do it without formal meditation, as Dorothy showed me. And to get to Tony's teachings, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. I was offering to do the Rediscovery of Life video up on the windward side of the island. And a buddy of mine, his son, who really knew Buddhism inside and out, excuse me, much more so than I did. We're driving back from Kailua, Kaneohe. And I'm explaining to him about de Mello's four-point program. And Daniel, who's like 14 at the time, maybe he's 15, he's really young. And he says, wait a minute. He says, that's Buddha's Four Noble Truths. I said, really? He goes, yeah. And so then he explains it to me. It was amazing. Now, if you know Buddhism at all, the Four Noble Truths are life is suffering, or at least the seed of suffering is always present, even if we're having a good time, because maybe we're going to want more of it. And the root of suffering, the second noble truth, is that the root of suffering is greed, hatred, and delusion. Now, these are all forms of attachments. And then the third noble truth is there's a way out. And the third noble truth is a way out. And the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path. And I can never remember them. I'm just going to read them off to you now. And that is right view or right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And Tony's four-point program was very similar, although he didn't spell out the Eightfold Path like Buddha did. And Tony was kind of funny about it. I mean, he would like to say, and this kind of summarizes the whole teaching, your life is in a mess and all is well. And so Tony would say, first, you're suffering, your life is in a mess. And second, it's not outside you, it's inside you. You're the cause of your suffering. And it's your attachments. And then the third point in Tony's program was that it's not you, it's your conditioning. And our attachments lie in our conditioning. And the fourth step for Tony was to understand this. Anytime that you're upset, is because your conditioning has kicked in. You have some form of an attachment. I mean, these happen throughout the day. If you pay attention, they happen throughout the day. I mean, you could be on the highway, there's a traffic jam, you're not going to get to where you want to go. And oh my God, why is this traffic so jammed up? I'll never get there. I'm suffering if I'm saying that to myself. But if I say, okay, traffic jam, I let go of my attachment to getting to someplace. Or if my wife isn't agreeing with me about something and we get into an argument, I'll wake up and realize that it's my issue, not hers, is that I have an attachment to my wife thinking the way I think or agreeing with me. And these things happen all the day. They can happen with the weather. You plan a picnic and it's raining. You're going to get all bent out of shape about it, or you're going to say, okay, I guess we'll stay in. We'll do something different today. It's letting go and it's understanding this. So the more that we practice this, and this is what Dorothy was doing, the more that we practice this, the more peace we feel inside. And Tony essentially says, that's your natural inheritance. A little while later, if we have time, I'll tell you more about how I got into de Mello. I'm going to connect that to a Course in Miracles, which essentially says that the aim of the course. Oh, Jimmy Toyama's coming back in. Let's see here. Welcome back, Jimmy. So back to the introduction of A Course in Miracles, the aim of the Course is to remove the barriers to an awareness of love's presence. The barriers would be our attachments. And when you start letting go of the attachments and you feel that sense of peace and that sense of love, and A Course in Miracles, it talks about God as love, God as peace, God as joy. You come back to your I was going to call it divine inheritance. In a way, it is that. You come back to your natural inheritance, your true being, your true nature, which is not the conditioned self. And you know, when Dorothy was talking about, oh, I just tell people it's the new Dorothy, and when she said, I'm scared, I don't know who I am anymore, she was dropping all the conditioning, all the attachments. And then she's just left with pure awareness. I don't know who I am anymore. And as Tony would say, don't believe anything I say. He's basically paraphrasing the Buddha. Just go ahead and practice and see for yourself. And he tells a story of the Buddha telling his disciples that be like the goldsmith who rubs and scrapes his gold, analyzes his gold, and see for yourself by the practice. And so amazingly, Dorothy was able to do that without formal meditation. Let me see, I'm just gonna check my notes here. I want to share with you, let me see. I want to share with you that Tony was such a rebel, if you will, that he ended up being the only person ever banned posthumously by the Catholic Church in 1998. He died in 87. And Sister Joan Chatfield was to tell me that the nuns in Rome got so upset with the Vatican. It was Cardinal Ratzinger. Steve, could you share with the group what you shared last night about Cardinal Ratzinger, what his position was in that office, which started, I think, in the 1600s with the Inquisition? Could you share that?
Yeah, he was the head of the Congregation of the Faith, which is the modern day successor to Inquisition. And my ancestors were Protestants, the Inquisition like that. So I have an interest in that like that. Yeah, he was from Germany, right? So he was the enforcer of Catholic Orthodoxy in Rome. And he tried to do as good a job as he could.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
So he was the one that put out a notification. Let me see if I have that handy. Yeah, I'll just read the end of it, where he says, with the present notification, in order to protect the good of the Christian faithful, the congregation declares that the above mentioned positions, Tony's positions, are incompatible with the Catholic faith and can cause grave harm. And what's amazing is that all Tony talked about was love. That's all he was really talking about. And I like how Sister Joan put it. She was a rebel in her own right. She said, Jesus told us to create the kingdom and we created the church. And the kingdom is out of love. I mean, the only two commandments that Jesus had was love God above all else and love thy neighbor as thyself. So Tony was banned, and as Joan told me, this is posthumously, that the nuns in Rome who loved his teachings found in the canon law of the Catholic Church that you cannot ban somebody who can't defend himself. And Tony had been dead 11 years. So they had to lift the ban. But that's just de jure. That's by law. In fact, the ban is still in effect. And I know this personally because years ago, I met with a priest here in Honolulu who had had Tony as a spiritual director in the 1960s. This is in India. And he just loved Tony's teaching. So anytime he gave a sermon, he would always include an Anthony de Mello story. And as I said earlier, Tony was the best storyteller. And then in 1998, he stopped doing that. He never mentioned Tony de Mello's name from the pulpit again. However, slowly but surely, he started weaving in some of the stories without referencing Tony as the author. And then there was another priest on this island who was running an awareness book study. And he was running it at a parishioner's house. And he wasn't comfortable bringing this up with the pastor that he was doing an Anthony de Mello book study. In fact, when I was asked by somebody at Unity Church up in Kaneohe if I would show the video Rediscovery of Life there, I said to them, I said, well, look at there's a priest in this neck of the woods that I know that really into de Mello. And let me ask him first if he would like me to show it at his church. And she said, okay. So I called him up and I asked him, and he said, okay, I'll check with the pastor. And I was up in that neck of the woods where his parish is, and I stopped in to see him a week later. And I said, how you doing? You go, good, good. I said, did you ask the pastor about showing the Anthony de Mello video? And he put his head down and he said, no, I didn't. You better show it at the Unity Church. And so it's amazing that even though, again, by law, the ban is no longer in effect, in fact, it still is. So, and I can see why Cardinal Ratzinger would be upset with de Mello. Now I'm going to read just a paragraph. This is a book called The Prayer of the Frog. And this is a book that's printed in India. And when it's printed in the United States, it's entitled Taking Flight. And when I ordered this book, I didn't realize it was the same as Taking Flight. I probably wouldn't have ordered it. And it's a story in itself about the book finally arriving, but finally the book arrives. And I open it up and I say, oh my God, these are all the stories from Taking Flight. And however, it has a different foreword. And this paragraph I'm going to read you, and this foreword is written by a friend of his, also a Indian Jesuit priest. And Tony died on June 2nd, 1987. So this is what this priest wrote. That was in the evening of May 30th, 1987. On June 2nd, he was found dead on the floor of his room in New York, having succumbed to a massive heart attack. In between, he's talking about having written this book, The Way to Love. In between having finished that book and May 30th, Tony had made time to write a long letter to a close friend in which he said, speaking of earlier experiences, quote, all of that seems to belong to another era, to another world. I find the whole of my interest is now focused on something else, on the world of the spirit. And I see everything else as so trifling and so irrelevant. The things that mattered so much in the past do not seem to matter anymore. Things like those of Ajahn Chah, the Buddhist teacher, seem to absorb my whole interest, and I am losing my taste for other things. Is this an illusion? I do not know. But never before in my life have I felt so happy, so free. And I can see why Cardinal Ratzinger would have been upset with that, with Tony saying things of the past no longer interest me. I mean, he was a Catholic priest for so many years. What would it be? 60 years when he wrote that. Pretty amazing. So I had no idea who Ajahn Chah was, but Ajahn Chah is absolutely wonderful. I can see why Tony liked him, because Ajahn Chah was a little bit of an imp himself, and Tony was always poking at us and being provocative, and as well as being very wise and very funny. So at this point, are there any questions about anything I said? Otherwise, I will go into sharing a video for a few minutes of Tony. Okay. So let's see what happens here.
I'll take this moment just to tell everybody that the resources, the videos and de Mello files that Richard wanted to make available to everyone are in the chat. So you can click on that.
And Melanie, you may not know this. Is there a way that one could copy that and paste it to like Word or something, or download it?
It is a Word file, so when they click on it, it'll pop up and then they can save it to their computer.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Melanie.
Mhm.
See, you are pretty advanced with this.
I just learned that.
Okay. So here we go. This is going to be the, I don't know. I have a hard time stopping this because I love it so much, but I'll find a place to stop it about, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes in. So this takes place at Fordham University in 1986. And can people see this?
Yes.
The instructional television studios of the Archdiocese of New York.
People can hear this.
Fordham
Yeah.
University Campus Ministries presents a National College Satellite TV retreat. Today's program, A Rediscovery of Life, is conducted by Father Anthony de Mello of the Society of Jesus. And now to introduce Father de Mello is Fordham University's Associate Director of Campus Ministries, Father J. Francis Straub of the Society of Jesus. Father Straub.
Our program today is being produced by the Campus Ministries of Fordham University with the cooperation of the Catholic Campus Ministry Association and originating from the instructional television studios of the New York Archdiocese. For my introduction of Father Tony de Mello, I have just one personal note I want to communicate with you. The most important year in my life was 3 years ago when I spent 6 months with Tony in India. It is a joy for me to share him with you for this one day. Please welcome a colleague, fellow Jesuit, friend, Tony de Mello of the Society of Jesus. Take it away. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, let me begin by telling you what I plan to do with you today. First of all, I'm delighted to be talking to a young group. The first time I'm doing this in the United States. I mean, I can see all of you are very young, even the somewhat older looking ones, but you know, I plan to keep this as relaxed and as homely as possible. Someone has told you, I think this is going to be a retreat. Well, yes, a retreat of sorts. You know, this isn't a church where I think this is going to be more in the nature of a kind of a dialogue. I discovered something 10, 12 years ago, and it turned my life upside down, revolutionized my life. I became a new man. So this is what I'm going to share with you. Happy to share it with you in a special kind of way, though, because you might say to me, how come you heard this just 10 or 12 years ago? Hadn't you read the Gospels? Of course I'd read the Gospels, but I hadn't seen it. It was right there, but I hadn't seen it. Later, having discovered it, see, I found it in all the major religious writings. And I'm amazed. I mean, I was reading it and I hadn't recognized it, hadn't seen it. I wish to God I'd found this when I was younger, like most of you. Oh, what a difference it would have made. So how long would it take to give it to you? A whole day? Well, I'll be honest with you, a couple of minutes. I don't think it would take more than 2 minutes. Giving it to you wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes, I don't think. Grasping it or getting it might take you 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 10 minutes, 1 day, 3 days, who knows? Who knows? That depends on you. If you would bring one quality to this little session we're having here together today, just one. You need one quality to see what I sort of saw 10 years ago and what revolutionized my life. Various people have told me since then that their lives were pretty much revolutionized too. But not too many people, I'm sorry to say, very few. I tend to think that if about, let's say, 1,000 people are listening to me and one hears it, that's a pretty good average. Pretty good average. Is it difficult to hear? Is it difficult to understand? It's so simple, a 7-year-old child could understand it. Isn't that amazing? And in fact, when I think of it today, I think, why didn't I see it? I don't know. I don't know why I didn't see it, but I didn't. Now, maybe one or other of you might see it today or might see part of it. What would you need to see it? Just one thing, the ability to listen. That's all. Are you able to listen? If you can, you might get it. Now, listening is not as easy as you might think it is. Reason. We're always listening from kind of fixed concepts, fixed positions, prejudices. See, listening does not mean swallowing. That's gullibility. Oh, he says it, so I take it. I don't want any of you to have any spirit of faith while you're listening to me. I mean, you could take what the church teaches on faith. You could take the Bible on faith, etc. Don't take me on faith. What I want you to do is question everything I'm saying, think about it, come back at me. Feel free to do that. See, even while I'm talking, ask questions, raise your hands anytime. I'd be happy to do this kind of dialogue with you. So it does not mean gullibility, but then listening doesn't mean attacking, see, because I'm going to say something so new, some of you are going to think I'm crazy, I'm out of my mind. So then you're going to be tempted to attack. If you tell a Marxist there's something wrong with Marxism, the first thing he's likely to do is attack you. You tell a capitalist there's something wrong with capitalism, he's up in arms. You tell an American, hey, you know, there's something wrong with the United States. And the same with the Indian, if you're attacking India, etc. Doesn't mean swallowing, doesn't mean attacking, doesn't mean agreeing. They tell me about a Jesuit superior who was a great success, see. So somebody said to him, how come you're such a great success as a superior? He says, very simple. The formula is simple. I agree with everyone. I just agree with everyone. They said, don't be absurd. How could you be a successful superior agreeing with everybody? He says, that's right. How could I be a successful superior agreeing with everybody? So it doesn't mean agreeing with me. You could disagree with me and get it. Isn't that amazing? It means being alert. You're alert, you're watching, you're listening with a kind of a fresh mind. That's not easy either.
Okay, I decided to stop it there. I mean, this video is wonderful, and I suggest that you watch it yourself. It used to be available on YouTube. However, the Spirituality Center, de Mello Spirituality Center at Fordham, that's where he was talking, owns the rights to it. And they prevented YouTube from continuing to show it. However, I have included on the reading list, the resource list, the video which you can get from this website through Venmo. So it's all on there on the resource list. And the thing is about that video, about the first 10 minutes, there's static, and it dives down about the 10-minute mark. And it also has Polish subtitles. So you just ignore the Polish subtitles unless you're Polish and you want to read them. I just encourage anybody and all of you to take a look at the whole video. I'm going to show some more of it in a little bit here. And it's interesting to note that he said he didn't see it until about 10, 12 years ago. Well, that would place it shortly after he discovered Vipassana, that he didn't fully understand the Gospels, didn't understand Jesus until he studied Buddhism. And I had a thought, I just escaped my mind. Two thoughts. One is that there is a book that he wrote just as before he died called The Way to Love. And you could take love as a verb, or you could take it as a noun. And to Tony, the word love was a pointer toward God. And in that book, it's a great little book of meditations, he calls them, 31 statements of the gospel. So these are Jesus' statements. And Tony gives an Eastern or Buddhist interpretation of them. And it's absolutely a wonderful little book. And people have said that has helped them transform their lives. So that's again on the list. And the other thought that I have in mind in relationship to this is I showed this video several years ago. And there was a guy in the audience when I came to show after the fourth segment, he said, I've been studying Buddhism for years and I never fully understood it till I listened to Tony de Mello, which is pretty amazing statement. And I'm not an expert on Buddhism. Trey mentioned about Greg Pye and his meditations on Saturday at 4:00 at Broken Ridge Temple in Palula Valley. Greg really knows his Buddhism inside and out. So if you really want to immerse yourself in Buddhism, I say by all means go to Greg's sittings, and he gives an hour-long Dharma talk at the end. However, I really think that Tony gets to the essence of Buddhism so quickly, and also the essence of Jesus' teachings, which are all about love. And this is there's a comment about Tony in words that Tony would often talk about, that the word is not the thing. And he's right about that. I mean, we've made up these various words, and we think the word is reality, but it's not. And I'm going to read a little bit from the book Awareness. Again, this is the transcript of the 4-day retreat he gave at Fordham. That 4-day retreat was following this 1-day seminar that Rediscovery of Life has captured. So this is about words. He says, Mark Twain put it very nicely when he said, It was so cold that if the thermometer had been an inch longer, we would have frozen to death. We do freeze to death on words. It's not the cold outside that matters, but the thermometer. It's not reality that matters, but what you're saying to yourself about it. I was told a lovely story about a farmer in Finland. When they were drawing up the Russian-Finnish border, the farmer had to decide whether he wanted to be in Russia or Finland. After a long time, he said he wanted to be in Finland, but he didn't want to offend the Russian officials. These came to him and wanted to know why he wanted to be in Finland. The farmer replied, "It has always been my desire to live in Mother Russia, but at my age, I wouldn't be able to survive another Russian winter." We tend to think the word is the thing. I'll carry on with this page here, this paragraph. Russia and Finland are only words, concepts, but not for human beings, not for crazy human beings. We're almost never looking at reality. A guru was once attempting to explain to a crowd how human beings react to words, feed on words, live on words, rather than on reality. One of the men stood up and protested. He said, "I don't agree that words have all that much effect on us." The guru said, "Sit down, you son of a bitch." The man went livid with rage and said, "You call yourself an enlightened person, a guru, a master, but you ought to be ashamed of yourself." The guru then said, "Pardon me, sir. I was carried away. I really beg your pardon. That was a lapse. I'm sorry." The man finally calmed down, and then the guru said, "It took just a few words to get a whole tempest going within you, and it took just a few words to calm you down, didn't it?" And then Tony says, "Words, words, words, how imprisoning they are if they're not used properly." So here Tony is talking about, when we get upset, it has to do with our attachment. It has to do our attachment to maybe what somebody thinks of us. They say, somebody could call you a swear word, and whether you react or not, that's up to you. So you can give power to words or not. And the whole idea is to be free. In fact, in the Wake Up to Life conference, in the book Awareness, he's talking about how our greatest addiction is to approval, what people think of us. And if I have time, I'll include some of that in the video with you. And he says that people always worried about, "Oh, am I okay? Do people think I'm okay?" He says, "My next book," and this is him speaking shortly before he was to die the next year. He says, "My next book is going to be entitled, 'I'm an ass, you're an ass. The Final Liberation.' It doesn't matter what anybody thinks of you." And this is Tony's point, is to be free, to be the being that you truly are. And again, this is not self. This is not the conditioned self. But we think we're these human beings. Like, I'm not Richard. That's just a label that was put on me at birth. Nobody is their name. My profession is psychotherapist, clinical social worker, but that's not me. That's just a profession. That's not my true essence. We're all much bigger than we think we are. So any questions about any of that? Okay, what I'd like to do now is, this will be a little bit less than 5 minutes. I want to play the first 5 minutes of the Wake Up to Life conference or the book Awareness.
Spirituality means waking up. Most people, even though they don't know it, are asleep. They're born asleep, they live asleep, they marry in their sleep. They breed children in their sleep, and they die in their sleep without ever waking up. They never understand the loveliness and the beauty of this thing that we call human existence. You know, all mystics, Catholic, Christian, non-Christian, they're all unanimous, no matter what their theology, no matter what their religion, they're all unanimous on one thing. And that one thing is, all is well. All is well. Everything's in a mess. And all is well. Strange paradox. But tragically, most people never get to see that. They never get to see that all is well because they're asleep. They're in a nightmare. You know, talking about sleeping reminds me, last year on Spanish television, I saw a nice little story. There's this elderly gentleman who knocks at the door of his son, who's fast asleep. He says, "Jaime, wake up." And Jaime says, "I don't want to get up, Papa." And the old man says, "Get up, you've got to go to school." And Jaime says, "I don't want to go to school." "Why not?" says the old man. "Because first, it's so dull. Second, the kids all tease me. And third, I hate school." So the old man says, "I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you must go to school. First, because it is your duty. Second, because you're 45 years old. Third, because you're the headmaster." Very good, it's true. So, wake up. You're too good to be asleep. Wake up. Stop playing with your toys. Most people tell you that they want to get out of kindergarten, but don't believe them. Don't believe them. All they want for you to do is to mend their broken toys. Give me back my wife. Give me back my job. Give me back my money. Give me back my reputation, my success. This is what they want. They want their toys repaired. That's all. Now, even the best psychologists will tell you that. They'll tell you people don't really want to be cured. What they want is relief. A cure is painful. Waking up is unpleasant, you know. You're nice and comfortable in bed. And at least as long as you're asleep, it's irritating to be woken up. That's the reason why I told you the wise guru will not attempt to wake people up. I hope I'm going to be wise these days and make no attempt whatsoever to wake you up if you're asleep. None of my business. My business is to do my thing, to dance my dance. If you profit from it, fine. If you don't, too bad. As the Arabs say, the nature of the rain is the same, but it grows thorns in the marshes and flowers in the garden.
Okay. Excuse me again. That was the beginning of the, excuse me, the 4-day seminar, Wake Up to Life, which followed the video I've been showing you. And I'd like to just talk a little bit here about how I got into de Mello, because this audio is the reason. I had learned mindfulness meditation with Stephen Levine at Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York in 1989. And then I was part of I guess we could call it a supervision group. It was through the Family Institute of Cambridge. It was about the spirituality and doing psychotherapy. And in other words, how to keep your heart open with the people you worked with, and also especially your heart open to yourself. And people were talking in this group about Jerry Jampolsky's book, which is Love is Letting Go of Fear. And I had read it like 10 years earlier. A friend of mine had given it to me, and I read it, a very simple book with cartoons in it. And I thought it was very kind of like for a child, and I gave it back and didn't think much of it. But 10 years later, I'm a different person. And I read it and I go, oh my God, there's so much in here. Well, Love is Letting Go of Fear. Letting Go of Fear is based on A Course in Miracles. And this woman says, oh, A Course in Miracles, she says, that's a really thick book, really heady, tough to wrap your mind around. But if you want a concise and humorous version of A Course in Miracles, study Anthony de Mello. And I said, who's Anthony de Mello? And there's another woman in the group. There was 6 of us plus Charlie, the leader. This other woman in the group says, Anthony de Mello, he's a favorite of mine. I have tapes of his. I'll make copies of these tapes. This is back in the day of cassette tapes, 1991. I'll make cassette tapes for everybody. So she came the next week with these 6 audio tapes, which is what we were just listening to the beginning. And I started listening to them. And I couldn't believe it. And I'm somebody that, I won't get into my own personal story here, but I had left, I was raised Catholic and left Catholicism and Jesus, and because my prayers were never answered as a child. And in the 70s and 80s, there was evangelicals, coming up to you and say, Jesus will save you, Jesus will save you. And to me, Jesus became a swear word. However, as I listened to Tony, his take on Jesus, and he basically was speaking Vipassana, although I didn't know that about him at the time. He just was weaving the teachings of Buddha and Jesus together in such a remarkable way. And I was brought back to Jesus and his teachings, which is really ironic because a few years later, Cardinal Ratzinger, he says, stay clear of Anthony de Mello. And he's the one that brought me back to Jesus' teachings. So anyway, and then I wanted to find out more about A Course in Miracles. And I went to a week-long seminar workshop in Scotland at Fintorn Foundation, which is a spiritual community. And this was a week long on A Course in Miracles entitled Relationships as a Pathway to God. And again, A Course in Miracles defines God as love, peace, and joy. And it was quite remarkable. And so the idea is that if you're always going inward, if you're upset with somebody else, you got to look inside. What's your attachment? And of course, Miracles will talk about your projecting. If we're upset with somebody, it's either something that we don't like about ourselves or it's the opposite. And I could explain that, but I don't want to take too much time with my own personal life here. But I was quite impressed with A Course in Miracles. And years later, I was to find out, I traced down Dick McHugh. Dick McHugh was a priest, turned out he was from Baltimore, who led these retreats with Tony in India. And it was through Sister Joan. She had this big book of the names of anybody in the Catholic Church, any priest or nun. And I found his name in Baltimore, and I called up. It's kind of funny. I called up and he wasn't there, but the pastor said, I'll take your name and number down. Well, the next day, Dick calls me up and he says, this is Dick McHugh. And I said, thank you so much for calling me back. And I just want to tell you, I'm really into Tony de Mello and his teachings, and I'd like to talk with you about him. And he goes, what? You didn't You didn't call me to invite me out to Hawaii to give a workshop? He says, if I had known that, I never would have called you back. Well, we proceeded to have an hour-long conversation, but he was just as provocative as Tony. In fact, Dick said that the first time he met Tony de Mello in India, at one of Tony's workshops, the morning session had ended, and he went up to Tony, and Dick was quite direct, as you could tell from that little story. Dick said to Tony, he says, you know, you're really full of yourself. You think you know it all. You're kind of obnoxious. And Tony says, you know, you're absolutely right. He says, if we want to talk about that, let's have dinner together. And then Dick said to me, we had dinner together and Tony became my very best friend. Because Tony didn't care what you thought of him. He only cared about, you're speaking from your truth. And so then I realized I forgot to ask him this question I had in my mind, because Tony sounded so much like A Course in Miracles. And so I emailed Dick and I asked him that question. Did Tony ever study A Course in Miracles? And he says, absolutely. In fact, when he had people come to his retreats in India, he assigned A Course in Miracles to them. Because Tony also, as A Course in Miracles says, there's only two states of being. One is love and one is fear. And if you're not in a state of love, you're in a state of fear. And you know you're in a state of fear because you're not at peace. As A Course will say or says, I can choose peace instead of this. Whatever's going on in your life, you can choose peace instead of that. And that's what Tony's message was. So just to return to my story about Tony de Mello and my relationship, to me it was, how do I put it? It was like it was meant to be. My best friend back home, he had found this flyer from this Jesuit priest. In fact, a priest in John Passerini's town of Lexington, a guy named Nick Spagnolo. And Nick was doing retreats on Cape Cod, weekend retreats. And he had three of them on the flyer. One was Stephen Levine, who was my first mindfulness teacher. Two was A Course in Miracles, and three was Anthony de Mello. And so I said to myself, I got to meet this guy. And so I called him up, went over to see him, and I got to know him. And he was getting older. At that time, he was approaching 80 or whatever. This was in the late 90s. And he says, you like Anthony de Mello so much. Why don't you give talks on Anthony de Mello? In fact, I'll give you all my materials. And he did. And so that's how I have the video of Rediscovery of Life and some other materials he gave me. And so I did 1 weekend workshop on de Mello back in Massachusetts before I moved from there in 1999. And I also moved to Madison, Wisconsin, where I would show the video at a Unity church. Then I came out here to Hawaii at the end of 2007. And after a couple of years, I thought to myself, I think I'd like to show this video again. And who could I ask about it? I said, oh yeah, I'll ask Sister Joan Chatfield. A little note about Sister Joan. She once told me that she lived in Manoa, and across the street on Oahu Ave is a Buddhist temple. And the head of the temple was this Buddhist nun, this little Buddhist nun. And Joan told me, she said, one day not one day, but times that she needed to talk, she would come over and knock on Joan's door, and Joan would come to the door, and this nun would say, do you have ears today? And of course, Joan always had ears for everybody. So I called her up and I said, can I come over? She said, sure. And there I was sitting in her living room with her. And I said, I'm looking for a place where I could show a video of Anthony de Mello. Do you know of him? And a big smile came over her face. She says, do I know of him? I was his chauffeur here in 1983 and 1985 when he came out here to Hawaii. She said he was absolutely fabulous. I really enjoyed my time with him. He was a delight. And so she said, I'm not sure where you could show the video, but call up a woman named Carol Alavisos. Carol is part of our Mindful Hawaii group. And she said, she's at Central Union Church. You could ask her. And she was also the head of what's called Contemplative Outreach of Hawaii at the time. So I gave Carol a call. This is in 2010. And I said, do you know Anthony de Mello? She says, well, yeah, I got a couple of his books. And we started talking, and she says, oh, I can't promise you anything, but I'll ask around. And she says, you know, actually, we're doing a book study of de Mello. I said, oh, which one? And she said, The Way to Love, and which was one of the two books I was thinking of doing a book study on. And I said, oh, could I join you? And she said, sure. And it turned out to be a centering prayer group at Central Union Church. And I had been doing centering prayer, which to me is the Christian version of mindfulness. I've been doing it in Madison, Wisconsin for several years. And so lo and behold, she was studying Anthony de Mello. And then she paved the way for me to start at Central Union Church. And then after about a few years, maybe close to 5 years, a new administration came on board there, and they said you can only do presentations if you're a member of the church. And I was not a member of that church. I didn't know where I would go to be able to continue with my presentations and my Friday evening book study. And then I was invited out to Calvary by the Sea out in Aina to do a talk on mindfulness. And I went out there one day and was giving the talk. We had about 15, 20 people sitting around a table. I mentioned Anthony de Mello, and this one guy I didn't know there. Well, I didn't know anybody other than the woman that invited me. He says, Anthony de Mello, he's my favorite. I said, oh, really? And this guy turned out to be the pastor out there. And I said, we'll have to get together and talk. He said, sure. So we got together and talked. And I said that, boy, I'm looking for a place to do the video again. And he says, oh, do it here. I'd love for you to do it here. So for the next few years, I was doing it out at Calvary by the Sea. And then he left for the mainland. And I needed another place. And so I was looking at going back to Central Union Church, but even though the pastor would have liked me to do that, the administration had a new policy where they would allow you to present if you're not part of the church, but you would have to pay for the square footage of the room. And the room I was presenting in before was huge, so there was no way that was going to happen. So again, I go to Sister Joan. I said, Joan, do you know any place I could do this? And she says, yeah, maybe St. Mary's on King Street. I'll talk to Father Gregory. So a week went by, and Joan hadn't called. And so she had given me the number, and she said, well, you could call him too. And so I called him up and I said, Father Gregory, my name is Richard Hennessey. I'm a friend of Joan Chatfield. And he says to me, you're in. So there was no sales at all I had to do. And he knew of Anthony de Mello. And I was hoping that Father Gregory would be with us today, but he's not. Anyway, I was then off and running with doing Tony de Mello here in Hawaii. And I just think it was meant to be. I'm aware that I've got 252. So Melanie, I could show a little bit more of the video of de Mello. Maybe I could keep it to 5 minutes and open it up, or just open it up right now for Q&A, or can we go a little bit beyond 3?
Why don't we take just a moment to see if there are any questions or comments that people would like to make? Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll keep going. I mean, I love talking about de Mello. Okay, let me see about pulling this other video up. Now, Melanie, what do you think? Do you think, since nobody had any questions, I could go for about 10 minutes, and that would bring us to, you know, a little bit after 3, and then we see if everybody comments about that, or I could just do half of it.
Okay, how are you folks? Do you want to see the 10 minutes or, okay, I'm getting some nods.
Yeah, let's watch
Everybody-
it.
Okay,
All
all
right.
right. So here he's going to be talking about our attachment to things outside of us in love and the importance of dropping attachments and being alone. He will say, once you get it, you'll never be lonely again. So let me do a screen share here. And then he's going to tell his favorite parable and his favorite story. And he ends there.
Ready for a surprise? That's what happened to you and me, to all of us. They drugged us. When we were kids, they didn't bring us up on the healthy, wholesome nourishment of play and work and beauty and the pleasures of the senses, and as we grew older, the pleasures of the mind. Oh no, oh no. They gave us a taste for a drug called approval, a drug called success, a drug called making it to the top, achieving, affirmation, triumph, victory. They gave us power, reputation, fame, prestige. They gave us this drug. And you know something? We began to feel good. It was kind of a giddy feeling, a great feeling when they were applauding us. And we started thinking, well, it was great to be famous. It was great to be successful. It was great to be made much of. It was great to be popular. Result, as we began to grow, they could control us any way they liked, you know. All you have to do is withhold the drug. Boy, if you haven't gone through this, I salute you. They don't approve of you, how uneasy you feel, how restless. They criticize you. They're not affirming you. Withdrawal symptoms. You're crawling back for reassurance. And your psychologists are writing books telling you, this is the way to be. This is the way to be. More of the drug, more control. Now, you know, as a result of doing this, you've lost your ability to love. Because when you need someone, you cannot love that person. Do you know why? Because you can't see that person anymore. When a politician needs votes, he stops seeing people. When a business woman or a businessman becomes crazy over money, they stop seeing people. When I want something out of you, I'm not seeing you. I want to get something out of you. And you know, my dears, it's so bad that 24 hours of the day, consciously or unconsciously, we want something from the people around us. We want their approval. We dread their disapproval. We're scared they'll reject us. We're scared of what they think of us. How could you love people like this when you're so dependent on them emotionally? Oh, we got to depend on one another. They'll tell you grandly, of course we've got to depend on one another. That's how society is built up. We share the labor, we share our charisms. That's marvelous. I have nothing against that kind of dependence. The evil is to depend on another for your happiness, to depend on another for learning, for technicians or technical skill, for food, that's fine, that's fine. For cooperation in the work, that's wonderful. To depend on another for your happiness, that's the evil. Now you cannot love. Give it a thought later when you have time and leisure. Until you stop depending on others, till you die to the need for people. When you first get in touch with this, you know, it's terrifying because you suddenly become alone. Not lonely, alone. It's a strange feeling. You suddenly understand what you've been all along, but you never saw it. And you suddenly realize how lovely it is to be alone, not to need others emotionally. And for the first time you understand that you can love people. You don't need to bribe them. You don't need to manipulate them. You don't need to impress them. You don't need to placate them. At last you can love. And for the first time in your life, you are incapable of loneliness. Cannot be lonely anymore. You know what loneliness means? It means a desperate need for people, to the point that you're unhappy without people. Loneliness is not cured by human company. Loneliness is cured by contact with reality, by understanding that we don't need people. We don't need them. At last you can enjoy them because you don't need them. There's no tension. You know what it means to be with people and to have no tension? Because you don't give a damn whether they like you or they don't like you, what they think of you. You know what that means? Oh, what a freedom. What a joy. They could think what they want. They could say what they want. That's all right. You're not affected. You got the drug out of your system. And oh yes, you're still in the world, but you're no longer off it. They can't control you anymore. And all of a sudden, you have nowhere to rest your head. The foxes have holes, the birds of the air have their nests, but you're not resting your head anywhere. You don't need to, because you don't cling anymore. That's when love begins. Well, I've given you so much to meditate on. It's quite a wrap up, huh? Guess I got carried away. I'll end with a little parable, and which, if I had to choose one of the thousands of stories I know, I would choose, well, I would call my favorite story. And we'll end with that. Too bad that I cannot get any more feedback from you and we cannot take those calls, but, well, there's a limit to everything. Hope to see some of you at least in the summer. In the longer courses that I have time to develop these a little more systematically and a little more calmly and stuff. Well, the parable. A group of tourists sitting in a bus. They're passing through the most gorgeous countryside. The drapes are drawn in the bus. Nobody sees a thing. And what do you think the people inside are doing? They're fast asleep, some of them. And others are obsessed with who's the best dressed woman in the bus. Who's the guy who's sitting in the most respectable place in the bus? And they're quarreling about this. And so it goes on to journey's end. And none of them have seen anything of this gorgeous countryside. What do you think most people are spending their lives on? On impressing others, that's what. On making sure they're not criticized. On getting affirmation. I wonder how many human beings there are who 24 hours of the day, consciously or unconsciously, are not obsessed with this. I wonder. Very few. Consequence, result. Very few people live. Talk about the rediscovery of life. You will never rediscover life till you understand this falsehood, which our culture, our society, I'm sorry to say to some extent, even many of the world religions are perpetrating. They're the enemies of life. And here comes the story. There was a lion who grew up in a flock of sheep and had no consciousness that he was a lion. What do you know? He didn't know he was a lion. And one day, you know, he would bleat like a sheep, he'd eat grass like a sheep. And one day they were wandering at the edge of a big jungle when a mighty big lion let out a roar, and he leaped out of the forest and right into the middle of the flock. And all the sheep scattered and ran away. And imagine the surprise of the jungle lion when he saw this lion there among the sheep. So he gave chase. He got hold of him. And there was this lion cringing in front of the king of the jungle. And the lion said to him, "What are you doing here?" And the guy said, "Sorry, have mercy on me. Don't eat me. Have mercy on me." But the king of the forest dragged him with him. "Come on with me." And he took him to a lake. And he said, "Look." So the lion, who thought he was a sheep, looked. And for the first time, he saw his reflection. He saw his image. Then he looked at the other lion, and he looked in again, and he let out a mighty roar. He was never a sheep again. Took 1 minute. Well, my dears, maybe in the course of all my talking, one or other of you will have looked and seen through all this network of lies and conditionings and programmings that we've been subjected to, and has had some inkling into who they are. Well, then this day will have been worthwhile. I certainly thank all of you for coming here. It really has been a joy to talk to you people. And maybe someday, somewhere, we'll meet again. Thank you.
Okay, any comments or questions about that 10 minutes? What Tony had to say there?
Wow.
Yeah. Right, Joe, that's what I say. If there's no questions or comments, two things. One is that if anybody wants to contact me, please email me at my email address, which is rhawareness@yahoo.com. I took that email address back in 1999, 2000, and that's my deference to Tony de Mello to have that as my email address, rhawareness@yahoo.com. And I'd like to leave you with this wonderful quote from Tony. This is, he gave a two-week retreat in India in April of 1987. This is just before he died, a few weeks before he died. And he was doing a mass at the retreat. So his audience would be priests and nuns. And in this quote I'm going to give you, he uses the word God. And know that he's using language because of the audience. In this Rediscovery of Life, early on, he says, if I was speaking to a bunch of Muslims, I'd be using the Quran. He would always talk in ways to appeal to the people he was talking to, so people would have an easier time taking in his message. So he's using the word God. And to Tony, God was, he said, we can't say what God is. God is mystery. We can use pointers toward God like love and peace and joy and awareness and meditation and freedom. So I just want to give you that preface before giving you this quote. So the quote is, "Don't change. Desire to change is the enemy of love. Don't change yourselves. Love yourselves as you are. Don't change others. Love all others as they are. Don't change the world. The world is in God's hands and he knows. And if you do this, change will occur marvelously in its own time and its own way. Yield to the current of life, unencumbered by baggage." So in this case, Tony's talking about baggage. Baggage would be our attachments that we all have. And there's no judgment about having attachments. We're human beings. That comes with the territory. And I just want to say that this week I reached out to Bill de Mello and he didn't respond to me. I was hoping maybe he would attend, but he tends to keep to himself. He really is not somebody who was like Tony, immersed in spirituality. He really didn't get into it till after Tony died. Bill was a businessman, much younger than Tony. And Bill has a website, and he used to offer a couple of books on the website, but a year ago he was not feeling well and it was too much for him, and he stopped doing that. And I've asked him if he would consider, in my email to him, and there's no pressure from me about this, if he would consider taking orders on those books that he has. If anybody is interested, you can let me know that. The book that we're doing right now in the Friday evening book study is Mastering Sadhana. And it's a book not written by Tony, but by Carlos Valles. And it's about that 15-day retreat he gave. And then we're going to do one of Bill's books, which is about a 6-day seminar he gave right after that retreat, or a few weeks after the retreat, just before he died. And it's called Swan Song. It's like the pinnacle of Tony's teachings in my mind. But you don't have to have a book to join the book study. So if you're interested in that, send me an email, and we'll talk, and we'll see if it's something you're interested in. Okay, well, thank you so much for showing up. This has really been a joy for me. I just love talking about Tony de Mello, and he's made such a huge difference in my life and the lives of others, and which I could tell you about, but we don't have the time, and I think you get the idea through the story of Dorothy. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
you,
everybody.
Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Richard will be in touch.
Yes, John. Yes, absolutely.
And thank you all for staying overtime. For those that are still on, I was going to say, Jimmy, did you want to say any last words to sign us off officially?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jimmy, I forgot.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you very much, Richard, for doing this. It's always a pleasure, and it's always an eye-opening experience, if you ask me. By the way, Richard and I did an Olelo show. We taped the Olelo show on Tuesday night, and it will be shown, I think, in January, I think. And please keep an eye on our website to see what the schedule will be. It's about Tony de Mello, and it was a fun show to do.
Thank you, Jimmy.
It's always fun to do things with Richard. And then for all of you who attended, thank you very much. And I hope I can get my computer fixed so that the next time we meet up, we will have a nice conversation going on. So thank you, and have a good Halloween and a wonderful Thanksgiving.
All right.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.